The results of my yard work. Posted by Evil Tessmacher. If you like these stories and want to see more, please like and subscribe. I posted this in another subreddit, but it was suggested I also try it here. So here it is. First, let me say that I am not 100% certain this is pro-revenge because I don't necessarily think of myself in that league. I live in a consolidated county. That means that the city and county governments merged some years back, ostensibly to reduce administrative and infrastructure costs. This is important because services like fire, police, utilities and trash pickup are now managed by former county officials and not city officials. Many of these services are also much more inefficient, and some services have been outsourced to private companies. My municipality outsourced trash and yard waste picked up a few years ago, and the two companies who now do those collections are woefully inadequate, and their services cost more than when the city or county did it. They both have similar sets of rules: what can be put out for collection, take fewer types of waste away, and no longer come 2 days a week as the city once did, but now only come 1 day a week. We're all paying more money for less service. Now that the background is done, here's the story. I did some yard work over the course of a couple of weekends last summer, cutting some limbs, trimming some shrubbery, and cutting down a dead tree in my backyard. Knowing what the rules are for how much yard waste, limbs, leaves, and such can be put out, I bagged everything that was supposed to be bagged, filling up 3 of them. Things like leaves and small clippings, weeds, and such. The paper bags for yard waste from the big box home improvement stores are what they require, so I use those. I just fill them halfway up so as to not make them too heavy for the waste collectors, even though there are no written weight restrictions. However, if a bag is too full, they will knock it over to spill out the contents, so they then don't have to pick it up. I cut the larger limbs down to under 4 feet in length, or they wouldn't be picked up. Anything at all they can do to get out of picking something up, they will do. And they almost always leave a horrendous mess behind when they do pick things up. The pile put out for collection is not allowed to be any wider than 10 feet, nor any deeper or higher than 5 feet, nor may it contain any piece longer than 4 feet. All bags must be placed in a row, no more than 3 feet away from the limb pile. My pile was maybe 4 inches longer than the 10 feet, and only because of the tiny ends of the limbs, smaller than a toothpick, hanging out of the pile. The pile was no higher than 3 feet and no deeper than 4 feet. In other words, it fell within the size limits, except for a few twigs with leaves. I also had the 3 bags, each about half full of clippings and leaves, all lined up exactly as required and about 2 feet away from the main pile. They were scheduled to come on a Tuesday, but when I got home from work that afternoon, it was all still there. There was a pre-printed notice on my door that my pickup exceeded the proscribed size limits, and the note said that I would be required to either pay a $250 oversized load fee or reduce the size of the pile by half to make it fit into the limit. This is where the revenge comes in. I had the next 2 days off, so the next morning, bright and early, I got out the hedge trimmers. I trimmed the ends of the pile back to exactly 9 feet in length after carefully laying those trimmed bits on top of the pile. I went to the backyard, where the limbs I had not trimmed up the week before were stacked for the following week's pile, and found 4 long, fairly straight limbs. I removed all the smaller limbs and leaves from these limbs, ending up with 4 moderately straight poles, each about 7 feet long. I marked 1-foot intervals on each pole in fluorescent orange paint and stuck them in the ground, out at the curb in the front yard, at the corners of a rectangle exactly 5 feet wide and 10 feet long. Got out the surveyor's tape, bright pink plastic tape used to mark property corners, and tied it onto and around the stakes at the height of 5 feet. This established a visual outline of the volume I was required to stay within. I made absolutely sure that everything in a pile was completely inside the poles and below 5 feet in height. This required adding almost 2/3 of the remaining pile in the backyard to the stack out front to bring it up to 4 feet 6 inches in width, 4 feet 6 inches in depth, and 9 feet 6 inches in length. And no pieces longer than 46 inches. The pile was almost twice as much material as before. This included some small logs, up to 4 in diameter, also each 46 long. The limit is 5 diameter, all within the limits of 5x 5x10 the waste company mandates. I carried each of the 3 bags of clippings to the backyard and filled each of them up as much as possible while still being able to fold over the tops and staple shut each bag. I also included small, 8 to 10 sections of the ends of larger limbs for added weight. The bags were now completely filled and weighed more than twice what they had before. I had to use the hand truck to get them out to the curb, and they were so heavy. Oh, and all the extra clippings I had generated filled up 2 more bags, so the total was now 5 bags. The company limit. I then went inside, called the company, and very nicely asked that they come to pick up my yard waste since they had not done so on Tuesday. They agreed to send out a truck and crew and told me I would have to pay the fee. Come on then, I told them. They soon arrived and happened to be the same crew that normally comes to my neighborhood. I pulled a 25-foot Stanley tape measure from my pocket and asked them to measure the poles to confirm that the space was within the required limits. They did so and agreed the pile was not oversized and proceeded to spend the next 2 hours manually loading it all onto their truck. Oh, and it took both of them to manhandle each of those bags into the back of the truck too. I told them, very nicely and with a smile, that I knew what 10 feet was, pointed to the fence where it was marked with orange electrical tape, and thanked them for coming to pick up my yard waste. The 2 tired, sweaty waste disposal guys just groaned, got in their truck, and drove off. There was no extra fee added to my bill for that month. Never has been since. Now, I know they got paid for their time, and I know that I had to do a lot of extra work on my day off, but since last July, I have not once ever had them leave so much as a single leaf on the ground in front of my house. They had to actually do some hard work, with me standing there in shorts, smiling and drinking cold Gatorade while they were sweating. And now for the top comments. That was pure art of revenge. It didn't really hurt them, you got your point across, and it was a big slap of karma. I applaud thee. This is pretty good petty revenge. I had them pull this crap twice on me since I've lived here, 20 years. The first one was them not taking my garbage because there was a lid you had to lift up. I live in bear country, and they didn't have time to lift the lid, even though all the neighbors have bear-proof cans that you have to screw off. Mine was just a hinged lid they had to lift. I called the company directly to complain, and they brushed me off, giving me that lid excuse. I called the city hall and lodged a complaint. They were there in 2 hours to collect it. The second time was them not taking a mattress that I put out. Our rules state that they can take them. Another call to City Hall, and they came back to get it. My city just awarded a new contract for waste disposal that starts in 2022. The company had lowballed the bid, easily coming in under all others. The city council obviously didn't check this company out because the company has a history of increasing the final price to above what the other companies bid. Not only that, but the new company will now supply 3 trash containers instead of 2. The residents now have to sort into a new category that fills the new medium container. We have to sort soiled recyclables, i.e., pizza boxes with food remnants, into that container. So, effectively the company has outsourced part of their trash recycling back to the residents. If you don't do it properly, you can get fined. Also, you can be fined if your trash container is filled to overflowing, i.e., boxes protruding from the top, where the trash can lid is not closed. Also, they sent out a brochure that details how you can be fined if the waste is like your example, too big yard waste, etc. Lastly, we're supposed to go to the trash company's website and agree to their services. I can't tell you how much I hate that the city council didn't use due diligence in their bid process and somehow have reduced the level of service and increased the possibility of fines. All for a few bucks that they thought they could save versus reality where we will pay more instead. Good for you for using their requirements against them. What's your say on this? Do you have a similar story? Comment below, and don't forget to like and subscribe.